Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with Black Ice. Okay, well, if you notice things slightly different, it's because I don't know whether I just messed up or something was messed up with the save at the end of the last episode. So I replayed the time to. We were, I think, a couple of days off, but it's generally the same thing, though. We cleaned up here in Crete. We're attempting to invade Cyprus. I don't know that we're going to succeed with that. We may have to reorganize another one. We've secured Ceylon. And China is becoming a great empire, though is starting to face a little more serious threat with Japan, but we of course see the stupid wars. And I guess I don't know if I should just be more accepting, but I get sort of angry a little bit. Some of this stuff has definitely been corrected with Germany declaring war on everybody, like still, we're still bogged down in Poland, and then we declare war on the West just because it's the time, kind of thing. They've fixed a lot of that, but Japan is still doing enough of this kind of stuff that's just sort of nutty. But well, we will see. And as a couple of I don't know how many of you are reading the comment section, commented and asked and whatever, I'm thinking currently, things are always subject to change because this is a flowing game, and we just now have a problem. Been having problems with that. Well, we're going to go on. I don't know how much longer I can keep this series going, honestly, people. Main problem I've been having is jumping back and forth between versions of... Ooh, we did well there against them. That's good. Between Hearts of Iron 1.3.2 and Hearts of Iron 1.3.3 because they're not save games compatible, and I do need to do some other work. So hopefully this won't go off the rails, but I guess converting back and forth, I don't know. Sorry. I don't want this to be too depressing of an episode, because I was actually in a good mood before starting this little bit here. And we lost Heinrich Dolfo Becker, shot down. Don't know that I know him. Heinrich Dolfo, because to me Dolfo is Adolf Galland. He was called Dolfo. I don't know this guy. Becker. No, Arno Becker, who was an artist. Third Reich and all, but okay, man.
Zuhören.
We push into there.
Angetreten. Bereit zum Ausrücken. Bereit.
Are you getting ready to invade again, or what? Well, let's trash this battle plan. Okay. Now, we got some more light bombers here. We're gonna send them up here to strategically bomb. Heavy fighters. Standing by, and we're gonna send those guys over to Britain here. No, really? Why do we have naval bombers? Because I'm an idiot? They should be here. Fighters, fighters, fighters. Wait a minute, why? No, oh no, we don't want, no, okay. It was just, they were all highlighted. And we want these guys over here. And yeah, it's when you get the new stuff, they highlight all of them, and I didn't mean to send them all here. I wanted to send these guys here. Yeah. Better fight this battle. And heavy fighters up here. Go after the bombers with them. And you can see here, we've lost our intelligence over Malta here. Yeah, I guess we have. I did look before there. Britain had been stacking a lot of fighters down in Malta, so they have been, you know, doing too well against Italy. So that's what we're looking at doing there. And we of course sent out a lot of air here. You go over southern India. You're just going over Ceylon. I guess Ceylon is also part. See this? I'm sorry, I'm having all these negative waves. And yes, one of you asked me, is there any hope for Hearts of Iron 4? Absolutely. He asked me on the Hearts of Iron 3 series. That I know a lot of you watch both. And I don't know if he watches both, but he's a Hearts of Iron 3 player still. The mere fact that Ceylon is still part of southern India's air zone just means they haven't, whoever they is, whether it's the devs for Hearts of Iron or the Black Ice team, haven't done a good job separating out the air zones. That doesn't mean the idea of air zones in and of themselves is bad, so there's most assuredly hope for the future of for this. Okay, so now, because I've been, as I found a few, and I think they're out here now, Focke-Wulf 200 Condors, the Focke-Wulf number 200 of them, have been, some of the squadrons have been upgraded here. And not that they're not superior naval bombers, but one thing that's really superior about them, obviously, is their range. So they're sort of wasted battling over the canal or the channel. So I moved them down here and notice they're getting much better coverage. You go after both types. Go after the shipping air. Here, Well, you go after that, you go after both, and you strategically bomb India for whatever good that's going to do us. So now we've got much better air coverage down here.
Befehle!
Very good. Aggressively there. That means you can hopefully swing down and you can swing into these guys. Nope.
Auf geht's!
Don't know who's attacking who here. Looks like they're attacking us, but we're winning. Or now we're attacking them and we've won. Well, good. Got Accra. Now, you
Bereit?
these guys
Zuhören!
with their support. There we go. Oh, good. We've got things that are much more control on the being bombed front. We are building some radar out here. Okay, fairly good coverage on radar, so that's a good thing. We've got plenty of rubber right now, more than enough. Tungsten we could use some more, so let's see if we can find a good trading partner. Unfortunately, and hopefully I haven't looked, the new Black Ice, because this is Black Ice's fault, I'm pretty sure that we can't trade with Sweden. They've just I went in and looked at the situation. They've just, because we're at war, Sweden just, no matter what, just doesn't like us. So no matter what we do, we're not going to be able to trade with them, which is a mistake from a very historical percentage. So that is something that should be corrected. But we can up this by one, which will help. With Portugal, we've got nationalist Spain. Now Japan. They steel to Japan, oil to Japan. We're shipping oil to Japan. Okay. That's not good, is it? What we need to do, and I've been reluctant to do it, because I wanted to be able to help out our allies, particularly in some of the resources that we have a lot. So we're going to go and let's see how this does. The 41 deficit here and 19 deficit there. Let's go for and close our economy down for the war on exports. Okay, now we're down to just -3, and we're at a positive with tungsten. Now that's partly because we upped it by 8, dealing with Portugal. I do believe that they accepted our got being tungsten. Yeah, they accepted our added trade. So that now makes things better. I think we'll leave that as such for trading purposes. Okay, so we're now positive with everything here. We're importing more than we're exporting. See, that's part of the, well, I guess it's, I don't know if it's a real problem, but because obviously we solved it by doing the closed economy. We were building oil factories, which then allowed people to export things. Okay, so we're going to let these go because, trust me, I would like to build more things, with more oil. So none of that is a waste, but I do think it is a... To be quite honest with you, if you want somebody to do the math on all of these efficient factory type developments, I'm not the person to listen to, because not that I can't do math, I just don't like doing math, so I don't do enough of it to do the detailed numbers, shall we say. But I do know that, and it's more important with the newer version, I do know it's important to get your fundamentals correct, in that having loads of military factories out here, and then not having the resources, particularly oil and rubber, to supply them is useless. So if you can do the math better than I can, great. If you have another YouTuber out there who does the math and says, you need the exact, what the numbers are to handle it, the details better than I can, great. Follow their advice. But general advice is get your infrastructure, your economy, which obviously includes
Zuhören!
well, no, I don't want everybody to come over. Let's
Ausrücken!
two of you
Ausrücken!
coming that way, and you support them.
Ausrücken!
And then everything else should follow well in the production line.
Zuhören!
Good. Once we get here, we can turn their flank by hitting them with two provinces at once, effectively, hopefully. Now, how's our... Okay. What happened to our... No, not that. Panzer Division. Oh, it got sent over here.
Ihre Befehle?
Failed. Okay. Well, we have 54
Zuhören!
currently.
Bereit zum
Let's just
Ausrücken!
use these guys from Crete to Cyprus. Get out of that mode, but I want to get back to this. The mode of drawing them. Okay, so 21 days. So as I was starting to say before, a few things interrupt my thoughts here. I'm planning on doing an invasion of Britain before the Soviet Union. We don't have to make all of the same mistakes that World War II made, go to war in Russia before you've settled the war with Britain. That was obviously a mistake. So we don't have to make those same mistakes. We can talk in the near future about whether I think the Soviet Union would have counterpunched while invading Britain,
Abstand halten!
or not. Because that's definitely an open question. Okay, that's good. Let this flow for a little bit. And how are we doing with air now that we put in some more air units? Want more fighters up there. Now they've shifted some more. Okay, Enigma Mark IV. A four-rotor Enigma machine was introduced by the Navy for the U-boat traffic on February 1, 1942, called M4. The network was known as Triton or Shark to the Allies. The extra rotor was fitted in the same space by splitting the reflector into a combination of thin reflectors and then a fourth rotor. This resulted in greater encryption capability. Now, for some months, the Allies will not be able to intercept our convoy raiders. Yes, okay, these are... We have taken... Oh! This is sort of what we've been waiting for. I wanted to see how this works. Why the image isn't working, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Because you know me and images wanting to make sure, because that's the blank. For some reason the image not working, so they're doing colored paratrooper there. We have retaken our colony. Tanganyika. General Leto von Bobek is back in command of our troops in East Africa, and there are great many veterans of the troops still remain, and we can train many new recruits. Great. So I don't know why this isn't working this way it should. I know I don't leave things without that, so... That triggered because we've now controlled enough of the provinces here. We now have claim, but so notice we now have claims here. Current owners, it's a mix between Britain and Italy. Kenya, for some of this here, is some sort of releasable state, I guess. Don't know why Kenya can have Tanganyika, but it's interesting. But we now have official German claims here. And like I say, I've got to go in and look at that. I don't, like I said, I've been having a little bit of problems, as you saw earlier, with some of the Tanganyika elements. The whole idea was, I don't know right offhand, but I think it goes back to the, I think it was the 1870s, and you know me, if you've been watching this for a while, I'm not great at dredging up all kinds of dates. But I think it was the 1870s, at least the maybe more 1880s. Germany started to colonize Tanganyika. Now, it didn't, day one or whatever, didn't encompass all this territory. Excuse me, let me drink something. You've seen all the Trader Horn and King Solomon's Mine movies, that they're going into the darkest Africa looking for things. You know, you've seen those kinds of movies. Some of them are really good, some of them are really bad. King Solomon's Mines by Stuart Granger as the main actor. Little bit of trivia there. Stuart Granger's real name is James Stewart. But there was already a very famous actor named James Stewart, often known as Jimmy Stewart. You've seen him in many, many things. Jimmy Stewart was such a, famous actor, still working before him. So you didn't want a confused name, so he called himself Stuart Granger. Don't know where the Granger came from, other than maybe a movie executive or manager or somebody. But that's a really good movie. If you don't know already, I love old movies. So the idea is that since sometime in the so Germany, started out down here in Dar es Salaam and slowly worked the way in. Obviously, out here is Tanzania, which also about that time became a British colony. But Germany was slowly working its way in and colonizing into Africa. So they had been there for a long time. And in some ways. I don't want to say in all ways, because we sort of, and Tanzania's done fairly well on the African post-colonial scale. But, and so has Southwest Africa. Cameroon does more sort of fall into the French scale for me, but which is below the English. But Tanzania is reasonably well done. The Germans have been there a long time, and from all the research that I did around all this stuff, they paid their askaris, those are the local colonial troops, the guys that sort of wear the fez hats, think about like 3 times as much as the English paid theirs, and the Italians paid theirs, and the Belgians and the Portuguese paid theirs. So these are some of the most highly paid, if you will, local mercenary troops. Some askaris were sort of spear-carrying tribal types. Others were, you know, I'm sure older model Mauser rifle type carrying guys. You know, they sort of breached the range of some of the stuff. But their better ones were pretty well good. They remained loyal throughout the whole war with Britain, and you got to see, yeah, it's who's going to be our white overlord. So there wasn't any sort of nationalism of, well, maybe we shouldn't be loyal. No, I mean, and they may have been more loyal to their tribes, because they're definitely more tribal than any idea of nationalism. But and so, you know, it's sort of, this is a relative term. So relatively, they were more loyal to the Germans, because all this, even in Germany's great defeat, and even where, you know, Vobeck eventually goes into Portuguese-held territory, because Portugal had joined the war on the Allied side, and retreating through all this stuff. I'm sure there were some, there has to be some desertion. But you could have easily had, because there were a large number of white Germans, was part of Boveck's forces, but there were a lot of porters. There were a lot of Askari fighters with weapons that could have easily melted once you know, the whole army is, you know, Britain's more or less towards the end has more or less taken over most of Tanganyika, and your army is now on a very successful raiding mission, if you will, but have abandoned their home territory, not to leave and go to somewhere else to raid, but because you've been kicked out of it, he's still fighting and attacking, because he sees opportunity, and trying to do the last stand kind of thing isn't going to win you anything. They could have just melted away, realizing that their homes are now being occupied by the enemy. They stayed because the Germans, and I presume to some degree, because I know this from some of the research that I did, and I don't remember specifically, the different colonial groups would latch on to a particular tribe, and, you know, or a large tribal group or whatever, and treat them well to help, you know, sort of divide and rule, to help control the other tribes, so that again, tribal loyalty. So, hey, we've been treated well, they've treated us well, we're loyal to them, and we're the king of the heap, king of the hill, king of whatever in our region, versus the other local African tribes. So there's definitely a fair amount of that going on. But with all this stuff, and, you know, the great powers fighting, they stayed fairly loyal to the end. So you got the end in 1919, I think, is when Vobeck finally, because it's after the armistice in Germany, do they finally surrender. You know, the war's over. That's when they finally surrender and turn in their arms and whatever. From there till 1940 here, roughly. So we're looking at roughly 20 years. So you're only a 20-year absence of German rule here, and the British are now the overlords. Presumably, a lot of, I don't know whether the veteran Askari signed up with the British, you know, of German veterans, but definitely they're recruiting, and I do know this, they were recruiting Askari in this part of Africa, in Tanganyika. But they were paying them on the British scale. They were treating them the way the British colonials treated their Askari, which definitely is not any better than the Germans treated their Ascari, and the Germans may have, you know, been a little bit more brutal tax collectors and whatever. I'm just saying than the British say in Kenya. I don't, you know, really know the details on who was more brutal tax collecting or whatever, but that's different than sort of the Ascari class, if you will, sort of setting up a caste system to some degree. But so now that they're sort of treated on the British standards, so the British aren't like this new enlightened overlords compared to the Germans for a lot of the stuff, a lot of the main elements in Tanganyika. So if you had, we're supposing, the payment of the pensions to Ascaris, probably also a few other pension types to other former German civil servants, and a few things like that in Tanganyika, showing back up with Vobeck and crew into this region with people that are accustomed to dealing with this region, and I'm sure had the racial prejudice that white men are better than black men, and I'm not saying I have that, obviously, but that's their viewpoint. But that doesn't mean that they see black men or black people as being not worthy of life. They're not necessarily like the you know, the growing Nazi view that, you know, you got to do ethnic cleansing by killing large groups of population just because they're not good, you know, are as good as you or whatever. It's more of, we're better than you, but we're going to help you be better people kind of thing. And it's sort of this do good, or we're better, but we're trying to do good to you, and all this stuff. And I don't know that, you know, obviously there's multiple ages here, and you're getting sort of the modern, in my opinion, claptrap on some of this stuff. You know, I'm talking about how these people were mistreated, but it's a relative term. You're being mistreated by your rulers, but you may have been 10 times worse mistreated by your neighbors. You know, so you have like you know, the Rwanda genocide up here in the 1990s, in which I forget whether it was the Hutu or whatever, tried to literally kill off everybody in the other tribe that lived in the country with machetes. So, you know, you have a genocidal war that's going on, and now these people are again living together. You know, post the war, they're both tribes are still there. They're both still, you know, more or less intermixed around the country, and they had just recently literally tried to kill off everybody of the other tribe, and they're still living in the same country. So when you're living in an environment in which, and trust me, the idea of genocidal war going on in this part of Africa in a sort of a tribal way was nothing new. Okay, it's, you know, gone on for a long time. I'm not saying it's gone on recently, but it's gone on. We can look at the Biafra genocide that I think that I would, because they were trying not so much butchering them with machetes in just like I say a year or two that was going on in Rwanda. The Biafra genocide was really a organized attempt to cause mass starvation in Biafra, and there were mostly non-governmental organization attempts at flying in food and other things into Biafra, which is part of Nigeria, just purely for food that relief to the starving population. Starving as bad as anything you would have seen later, you know, with Ethiopia and Somalia in the more recent times. I mean, that level of starvation, and the Nigerian government using its Soviet-donated MiGs to shoot down the food supply airplanes that were being flown in by you know, European non-governmental organizations because they were carrying arms. Well, there were flights carrying arms in there as well, but they were targeting everybody. Even if you had a big Red Cross symbols on your airplanes, and you can inspect, if you want, you can have inspectors at the airport to inspect all the food going on to make sure that it's just food for the starving people and not for no arms going in. But no, they still shot all the stuff down. So don't think that Rwanda genocide is anything new, unique, or different to the general goings on in the last 200 years history of Africa. Okay, it isn't. So again, we can talk about colonial mistreatment, really bad in the Belgian cases, really compared to some of the others, minor mistreatment by the British as mistreatment, but realize that the different tribes mistreated each other greater than the Europeans did. So it's, you know, ooh, bad of colonialism. Well, a lot of these colonials were missionaries that wanted to spread the word of God, and oh, stop like being cannibals. So, well, okay, that's maybe, well, there's cannibalism in Africa too. Yeah, there's significant, but that's also stopping cannibalism in New Guinea and other places like that. You know, and oh, you mean we have to shoot you to stop you from killing and eating us? Yes. So we're going to use violence to try to bring a certain amount of civilization, and that's, yes, they also had economic exploitation, but they were willing to go into the remote parts of the world and kill people to bring in what they saw as civilization. Whether you agree with that civilization or that they should do that, that's a different matter, but that's how they looked at it. So to say colonialism is bad and we should never have done it is to go, oh, two neighbors' houses are butchering each other. Oh, well, that's the way they want to live, so, but we can't go in and stop them. Well, at some point, at some stage, you can make the moral judgment, whether you agree with it or not. I'm not saying you have to agree with that going into, but at some stage, somebody decides to go in and intervene, just like the UN sort of does today. It was done through colonial powers. So, get back short story going long, we'll try to bring it back a bit shorter here. With Tanganyika, you have recent German colonial ownership. You have British, on the whole, in my opinion, not treating them any better, and in some ways treating them worse. And then if you sort of did the one non-historical thing of paying pensions and some other sort of donations and help fees, I think you would re-get local justified claims on a place like Tanganyika. Definitely on a place, because most of the Europeans, I do believe, at this time in the 30s, in Southwest Africa, well, if you take outside of Walvis Bay, which is here, which is a South African colony, primarily English South African colony, not the Afrikaners, there was a significant population there. A good chunk of this population is still ethnically German and still speaks German, and they still celebrate Oktoberfest down there to this day. In sort of the German colonial descendants do. And so coming back in here with the South Africans, they're not ruling any better than the Germans were, any more enlightened towards the local peoples, so that I can, and I have not coded in getting the cores back and ownership back here for Germany yet. But so I'm arguing that this is all very plausible. Okay, well, we've gone on long enough. Mostly my talking, I know. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. I do appreciate that. Please post questions, comments, suggestions, and if you've got a correction, because I'm just winging it right here, and so whether you've looked it up on Wikipedia or you just know, please post it. When I do the research, I do the research, but when I'm just talking, I'm just talking. So see you next time for more Hearts of Iron.